Hi everyone, welcome to my continuation on micro frontends. In this video, I'll be taking the previous application that I've been building in my sample demos, which is a React TypeScript application running on Webpack with module federation, and I'll be porting this application over to use Rspack and module federation coming from Rspack. The scope of this video is to provide you kind of a quick and simple implementation where you can take the guide that's on the Rspack website, we could quickly kind of convert over our applications, and we can look at what compatibility looks like in the micro front-end world. As always, if you like the content of my videos, please like and subscribe. I plan to continue this journey with Rspack, micro front-ends, and diving into module federation 1.5. So if you haven't heard of Rspack, Rspack is a Rust-based web bundler. It is a replacement for Webpack. It's not meant to be a one-for-one replacement for Webpack, but it's meant to be highly compatible. So with it being highly compatible, the idea is that a lot of the plugins and things that exist and work in Webpack today should work in Rspack with very little modification and changes to your existing configuration. Some of the benefits of Rspack are definitely focused around performance. It is part of this Rust-based push of tools that the JavaScript ecosystem is embracing. It is a huge performance increase over Webpack. It is, I think, the fastest bundler out currently to date. And it plays very well with the Webpack ecosystem, which makes up the majority of web applications today. It's very easy to get started, and we are going to be leveraging its guide to help us in our migration. So if you remember our previous application, I'll put a link to the repo in the description here. I'll be working off a branch. The branch that I'll be working on is called a pnpm-example that will be in the link. On that branch, what we are doing is we are leveraging pnpm workspaces, and we're not using NX, we're just using a very kind of traditional monorepo setup. The goal of it is to migrate the apps and test compatibility with Rspack, Webpack, and module federation. Where one app is running on one bundler and one version of module federation and vice versa. Let's get into the details here. Let's start the conversion and let's see where it takes us. So in my application here, I have a host application and I have this app2. This is really just my remote here. So I'm going to start with app2 instead of the host because it is this is the remote in this case. So I'm going to just start very simple. And again, the use case here is that I have a micro front-end architecture. They're running on Webpack today. And because they're running on Webpack, I want to incrementally migrate over to Rspack, right? I don't want to convert everything. I want to convert maybe a remote or a couple of remotes at a time, roll those out, observe them for issues, right? Bugs, performance, whatever, and then incrementally adopt Rspack. So that's kind of the scope again for this video. When I open the package.json, if we go through this file, there's a number of files that are very specific, right, to Webpack, right? You've got these loaders, you've got all of the Babel stuff, the Babel configuration. There's a lot here, right? I mean, if you look at this, this is almost all supporting Webpack. So it's going to be really interesting to see how we can go from what we have today, what it looks like in Rspack. So if we go to Rspack, one of the best ways to get started is to click on their guide, go down to migration and migrate from Webpack. And they'll give you a pretty good guide about how to port over loaders, what's supported, what's built in. So we are going to go through this. The first step though, is we want to go ahead and we want to install Rspack. So one of the things to note is that there are a couple of ways to go about this. There is the RS build way, and then there's the Rspack way. I'm going to be showing you Rspack because it's more, one-to-one with Webpack, just for simplicity. RS build though is a great tool, and it is something that I'll definitely be doing a video on and how you can migrate using RS build as well. So to get started with Rspack, the first thing we are going to do is we're going to install the Rspack CLI. So the Rspack CLI, it's going to be a little different than what they recommend in their documentation here, which is Rspack. This is just the legacy package here that they have referenced, but you can install at Rspack CLI. And once we install this, we will go ahead and start creating our Rspack config. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go into our webpack config, and we're just going to rename this Rspack config.js. So we're just going to change the name, and we're going to keep kind of everything the same for now. Let's go back to their documentation. We're going to go to their migrate from webpack guide. So in here, the really nice thing is they'll give us kind of what I would consider most applications are doing, probably using Babel. You might be using Speedy Web Compiler. And all we're going to do is we're just going to take their two here, and you'll see that essentially they're using Speedy Web Compiler, and they have their JS and TS regex, and then the loader for the JSX and TS part. And literally, I'll just kind of copy it here, and we'll come in here and we'll look for our loader. See, we have this loader here, and we're going to replace it. And let's see here. So that should be that loader. What we're going to do is we're going to just go ahead and replace out their plus sign here. So now we have basically the built-in SWC loader, and we've got it running for both TS.js files and JSX and TSX files. So now when we look at this, there'll be other documentation here. So I'm going to just kind of duplicate this here. We'll stop kind of right at this loader here. And I just want to point out that in their docs here, there is a section on TypeScript, and they'll talk a little bit about kind of what they're doing, compatibility and things like that. But I did want to highlight one of the things they suggest is isolated modules in your TS config. So let's go to our base here, and let's enable, we already have isolated modules turned on. So we're already kind of compatible with that. Let's go ahead and go back to their guide, and let's kind of continue here. So now that we've got kind of our transition away from Babel loader over to their Speedy Web Compiler, an additional, Rust-based loader, set up and configured, we'll keep going down into the kind of the next portions here. So they talk about, CSS loader, style loader, mini CSS extract, and in our particular project, I'm pretty much using all of these, right? I am using CSS modules. You may not be. I am. So this is definitely applies to me in this case. We're going to go ahead and kind of look at what their advice is. So they recommend removing all of these, and they have, let's see, two different rules here. So one for CSS files and one for CSS modules. So what we'll do is we'll come in here and we'll just take their loader for CSS, which I don't think, yes, I am using plain CSS too. So let's go in here and let's remove mine completely. And I'm not going to worry about those. I'm going to also grab the one for CSS modules. I'm going to put it here, and we are just going to quickly kind of strip out these characters. So now we've got both CSS files and CSS modules, and we've ported over. And as you can see here, there was, no additional loaders here. We're not using additional packages. We're not using plugins. We're just using what's built in Rspack. So this is another huge benefit of Rspack, is we are effectively using these configurations that they have said these are common enough to where we're going to include support for it for the users. So you're not going in and you're not trying to kind of recreate what Webpack is, which is, we have projects that, most projects are using X, Y, and Z, but we have to go through all that boilerplate setup, which is a really nice feature, in my opinion, of Rspack. So if we go down the list here, we'll see that they have file loader and URL loader as well. We're not actually using these, but you can, again, you can see the example of, hey, I'm using this in Webpack. This is what it's going to turn into. So at this point, if I look at my Webpack config, there's some plugins that we have to address. Other than that, we've got, a number of things here at the top that technically we're not really using anymore. So one of the things to point out here is if we go into their documentation and we look at configure Rspack, they'll give you basically the different ways that you can stand up Rspack. So one of the things they recommend here is that, if you want kind of autocomplete and you want to stick with the JS file and don't want to deal with the TypeScript configuration file, which to me is fine. You could come in here and you can have this define config call that comes from Rspack, and you can basically export that config file, and you'll see here that this again is coming from Rspack. And you'll notice that pretty much everything works here without really having, any sort of additional changes, right? So we'll put on tsconfig, we'll kind of see what comes up, what's supported, what's not supported. And you'll see for the most part here, type false is not assignable to type true. I'm assuming what they want you to do here is just omit it. So I'm going to omit it. And if I keep scrolling down here, it's just saying that these aren't, these are like if you're not in production. So I'm just going to put them to true. I believe this has to do with their hot reload. So we'll look at the documentation on that. I'm going to just kind of do the same thing here. And we're going to scroll down and we're going to start looking at our plugins here. And we'll get rid of this infrastructure logging because we don't really need it. Okay, so now we've got pretty much the whole thing converted. And we're going to go into our package.json here. We're just going to go ahead and actually switch out just the word Rspack or webpack for Rspack inside of our package.json scripts. I'm going to go into here and I'm going to just try a build real quick and we'll see if it blows up. It definitely blows up, and it's going to talk about plugins not being defined. Okay, so let's kind of look here and see what we've got. So there's a couple of things. One is this is kind of a copy and paste. I started from the host project. So I am referencing some assets out of here. So I actually do need the static asset support that was in the migration guide. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to grab these. And this is going to be just 2 additional loaders that I add in here. And okay, now that we have our file loader loaders in place, we're going to go ahead and start looking at the copy plugin. So we know we're referencing them, and we're essentially copying these assets from the public assets folder to our output, right? This is standard Webpack copy. Well, the cool thing is that there's a number of plugins that Rspack also provides support for. So the Rspack or copy Rspack plugin. So migrating to this new RS plugin should be pretty easy here. I should be able to just basically look at their documentation. The one thing here that it's not pointing out is we want to leverage these plugins from a different package. And the other package here is going to be RS Core, right? So it's one thing that we don't have installed here. So we are going to say Rspack Core. And we are going to install, again, kind of the same version of this, which is 0.5.1. We'll do a quick install. And at this point, we should be able to come in here. Let's see if it's resolved it. It has. You'll see Rspack is here. So we could just kind of reference the fully qualified name. Now, what's nice is, again, a lot of these things are highly compatible with Webpack, right? So I don't actually have to go in and completely change things, right? I'm just kind of changing an import statement and it's compatible, right? So we don't need mini CSS extract because that's already supported. And if we look at this HTML Webpack plugin, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to look for this in the list here, and there is a Rspack one as well. You'll see it's named a little differently, so I'll just kind of copy the name here, and I'll just replace it, and that's converted too. Now we've got the module federation plugin. Now this is, again, we're just importing the Rspack object. We could import the plugins directly to, but this one, I believe, comes out of a different area than the other one. So if we import this here, it's a little different. This is just what VS Code kind of resolved here. And I want to say that there's an easier way to get to this too. I think you can export the container and you can also grab it from the container object. So I'm just going to do that. And you can see that this is now resolved too. And we'll come back to this, but there is also, if you kind of peek up here, you'll see there's a module federation and a module federation v1. We want to stay on v1 actually, because we're currently on v1. So we're just going to keep it really explicit and we're going to stick with v1. Now the federated types plugin. So this one is actually separate. And this is the existing one that we're using with module federation. So I am going to just re-import that. If I could spell, it would be fantastic. We are going to just kind of keep that the same. So when you look at it here, let's see here, Rspack instance, compiler, and compiler are not compatible, is missing the following path. So what we're going to do is we're just going to TS ignore this for now, and we're just going to leave it alone. Let's do another build here and see what it's complaining about. It's going to say unable to find the module federation plugin. So we know that the federated types plugin is probably not compatible here. So let's see what version we're on. There is a newer version out, so let's try the newer version here and see if it makes a difference. Okay, so you can see that it still does have an error. Let's see if we can at least build. Okay, so it is looking for the module federation plugin and it does not consider the Rspack module federation plugin. So I'm just going to comment this out for now. We can revisit this. There are two TypeScript packages. I think Rspack module federation will eventually provide support for federated types, but besides the federated types plugin, there's also the native federated types plugin, which is something that we could look at, but for simplicity right now, let's just go ahead and comment it out. We'll do a build and we'll see that the application builds successfully, and we'll run the application real quick. We will test it out and we'll see this is app 2. So at this point, we've converted our remote application using pretty much most of the information from the guide. The couple of small things just to note, though, that aren't exactly accurate in the documentation, and really it's just probably because these guys are moving so quick at Rspack. I mean, there's just so much work going on. But Rspack, CLI, and core, these are things that you want to install. So it's a little different from the documentation. I'm going to go back to the root, and now we're kind of in our next test here. And our next test here is really to test out that we can load app 2, which is running Rspack and module federation v1 in our host application, and basically have no impact to functionality. So what I'm going to do is just come in here and I'm going to run my pnpm start command. That will run the application here. You'll see that my remote fires up, and then the main application will fire up here. And again, this is running webpack, so you can kind of see where things are going. You'll notice that I run into this error, this refresh reg, right? Now, what's really interesting about this here is this caught me off guard a little bit at first, and it was because I didn't read all of the documentation. So in the documentation, they talk about basically how the Rspack used to provide this out of the box. They stopped providing it because of the fact that they basically didn't want to they don't want to provide too much functionality within their package, right? They want to split things apart, which is a great decision. But that is missing in app 2. So if we go back into app 2 and we install these, we have to then go into our configuration. And again, this is just providing support for hot module reload. And they'll show you here, basically to add this here. So let's go into our plugin array. And I'll do it above the one that's commented out. Here, let's just steal their import real quick. And I'm just going to assume it's dev. I'm not going to really worry too much about the little kind of Boolean trick that they have here. I'm just going to assume that everything is great and it is a dev build, and I want refresh, the refresh plugin here. And okay, so let's see what we got here. So if we run start, let's see here. What did I mess up? Oops, I messed that up. There we go. All right, so let's reload our applications. We should see that 3000, it's gonna take a second to load, but the old app loads still, and you'll see that the new one works. It works just as it did before, right? So this component up here is coming from the remote, right? If you remember from my previous videos, if you've seen them. So this kind of hero image at the top here, it's a little zoomed in, but this is effectively coming, this is the remote. And you'll see that it's compatible, right? So I've got my host application running webpack, running module federation that's bundled with webpack, and I'm running Rspack on my remote using the module federation v1 plugin. So if I go back to my remote and I swap it with the module federation plugin, so it's no longer the v1 plugin, it's just the module federation plugin. That plugin is the module federation 1.5 plugin. So all I'm going to do is swap it here and relaunch my applications, and it's webpack. It's going to take a second. And you'll see it still loads, right? I can, verify this. I can go into the network here and I can look at, things like the, the remote fetches and see that it's coming over the other port. So it is still loading that, other component on Rspack on module federation 1.5. So now it's running a different version, but it's still compatible. So that's super cool. That's definitely good to know. So now we can do some cleanup in app 2, right? We can come in here, we can get rid of the Babel stuff, we can get rid of some loaders, lots of loaders, more loaders, webpack, TypeScript, CSS modules. I'll just leave that for now. And you see we've gotten rid of a considerable amount of NPM packages here, which is nice. Our config is still, it's a little larger because it's, the Speedy Web Compiler loader, and it just has some configuration here. I think you can still centralize it under the SWC RC file like you could with the Babel RC file, but we can delete that too. That's gone. And we could pretty much start with converting our host application. So what's really nice here is that we can kind of come in and we can follow the same steps, right? So, a faster implementation is I can, port these over, and I can just take my Rspack, I can paste it in here. Now, pretty much everything's the same. I did miss these two packages though. So I need the refresh. I'm just going to take this whole section here, and there's just a lot here. I mean, there's just a lot of packages here, so I'll just paste it and rely on IntelliSense there, kind of weeding it out for me. But we're going to go ahead, we're going to install everything over. We're going to get this, booted up in the host here. And this is just kind of pulling the same thing over. My module federation config is embedded in webpack config. I could, pull it out and it would be even easier, but I'm just going to copy and paste it over. Again, federated types right now, just doesn't support it. And that's okay, because maybe there'll be an update, and we could do another test with the native federated types here. Otherwise, the Rspack config is in place, right? And pretty much everything still applies here. There's really nothing different, just because of the way my projects are structured. So I can come in here and on my host application, I can replace Rspack, and I'll delete webpack config just to kind of prove that it is working. And we will go ahead and try to run the app here. We'll see it fails here because it's already in use, and that was just one kind of subtlety here where I have, let's see here, the dev server, and I forgot to just change the port, right? So if I come in here and I run it again, now they'll start on different ports, so that was my fault. I'll go in and I'll just refresh this again, and you'll notice how fast it loaded, right? If you remember just a second ago, we were running webpack, and it was just sitting there and spinning and spinning and spinning. This time, you saw me refresh the application because I almost thought it didn't load. It wasn't actually working, but it's that fast, which is amazing. So you could see in each app it compiled. It was half a second, and it was up and running. And we have converted this application to Rspack and Module Federation 1.5 that quickly, that easy. And nothing has changed. Everything is still the same. In fact, we have removed packages. We have removed code. We have an almost identical config file. So most of our configuration has ported over and is completely worked without any issues. And most of this was just kind of following the documentation that they had. I think in a future video, let's dive a little bit more into federated type. So if this was my project today and I had to rely on federated types, what I would do is I would most likely abandon this package for now, and I would look at the native federated types package in order to have support for Rspack. So today, the way that package works is it uses, it's not so dependent directly on Webpack. There's kind of multiple versions of that plugin within the package. So it'll have Rspack support inside of it already. This package might receive an update to be compatible with Rspack. And I believe Federation itself will provide support for federated types in the future. Again, kind of condensing down that ecosystem of plugins and what you need from external and what comes within the tooling that you're working with. I hope this video was useful today. Again, I will explore Module Federation 1.5 a little bit more in future videos. We'll talk about plugins, things that have changed, a little bit into the new ecosystem. Until then, again, if this is helpful, I would like to hear, comments from you in the video. Like, what have you run into? Have you tried this yet? Or, what kind of difference is this making for you in terms of your developer experience, right? One of the big benefits here with Rspack is just the build time difference is huge, right? So you're going to see, reduced CI times, developers are going to be more productive. You don't have to wait for things to spin up and spin down, and not to mention just, a lot less, finding plugins and versions and, maintaining all of those versions and, licensing behind all of the different open source software projects. So having kind of everything within the Rspack ecosystem should be a huge benefit to your team as well. Anyhow, thanks for watching the video. I hope this was helpful.